On June 5, 2002, the sense of security in Salt Lake City was shattered in the middle of the night. A man broke into the Smart family home, took 14-year-old Elizabeth from her bed at knife point, and disappeared into the darkness. The scale of the immediate search was staggering. Thousands of volunteers and teams of tracker dogs combed the area. But they were fighting a ghost. There were no fingerprints, no stray hairs, and no DNA evidence left at the scene. With no physical evidence for the police to follow, the Smarts took a different path. They turned to the national media, appearing before cameras daily to keep Elizabeth's face on every screen in America while pleading for her return. This lack of forensic clues created an investigative vacuum. It terrified a nation that was beginning to realize a child could vanish from a locked home without leaving a single trace. Detectives quickly focused their attention on Richard Ricci. He was a former handyman who had previously worked at the Smart home, and his background immediately made him the primary suspect. Law enforcement developed an intense fixation on Ricci. They prioritized his prior criminal record over nearly every other lead, spending weeks interrogating him and pursuing burglary charges while hoping for a confession. This preoccupation came at a cost. Investigators sidelined the only actual eyewitness, Elizabeth's 9-year-old sister, Mary Catherine. They doubted a child's memory of the intruder was reliable and focused instead on traditional criminal profiling. The momentum of the case stopped abruptly when Ricci suffered a brain hemorrhage and died in custody. The official investigation was effectively paralyzed. By ignoring the eyewitness in favor of a dead-end suspect, the police were left with no active leads. While the police searched for a phantom, Elizabeth was held captive by a religious zealot named Brian David Mitchell and his wife, Wanda Barzee. Elizabeth wasn't held in a distant city. Her captors set up an encampment in Dry Creek Canyon, incredibly close to her neighborhood. The proximity was psychological torture. She sat hidden in the brush, hearing search parties call her name, just out of reach. Mitchell used physical concealment to keep her invisible. He forced her into head-to-toe white robes and thick face veils, which allowed him to walk her through public areas without anyone recognizing her. This strategy worked even when a detective confronted them at the Salt Lake City Public Library. When Mitchell claimed their religious beliefs prohibited the women from speaking or removing their veils, the officer walked away without checking their identities. The kidnappers turned the public's expectations against the search. While volunteers scanned the city for a missing girl in pajamas, Elizabeth walked past them as a silent figure hidden under heavy religious robes. 4 months after the disappearance, Mary Catherine had a breakthrough. She realized the intruder's voice matched a former day laborer her family had briefly hired, a man known only as Emmanuel. The police were dismissive, doubting a child could recall a voice from a single day of work months earlier. Realizing law enforcement wouldn't act, the Smarts took the investigation into their own hands. The family hired their own sketch artist to create an image of Emmanuel and distributed the drawing to national outlets. It was broadcast on massive platforms, including a prominent feature on America's Most Wanted. On March 12, 2003, multiple citizens in Sandy, Utah, recognized Mitchell's face from those television reports. They called the police, leading to the moment the veils were finally lifted and Elizabeth was rescued. The resolution of the case did not come from a forensic lab. Instead, the family used national media to strip away the kidnapper's anonymity, forcing him out of the shadows and making him impossible to ignore. Elizabeth's physical rescue was a miraculous relief for the country, but returning home brought a new set of challenges. She struggled with the psychological toll of her 9-month ordeal, feeling isolated and embarrassed by what she had endured. The legal battle lasted for years as the court debated Mitchell's mental state. Ultimately, he was sentenced to life in prison, while Wanda Barzee received 15 years for her role in the kidnapping. Elizabeth's path to recovery began when she decided to take control of her own story. Rather than retreating into the background, she chose to use her visibility to help others. She stepped into a life of public advocacy, founding the Elizabeth Smart Foundation to combat sexual violence and joining national news networks as a correspondent to report on other missing persons cases. By speaking out, she was able to reintegrate with her family while building a new identity that was no longer defined by her time in captivity. Media visibility and a vigilant public were the tools that found Elizabeth Smart, but it was Elizabeth herself who chose to stay visible, ensuring that the lessons of her